Welcome to the SALT Sideline Report. I am Leanna Haakons, and we are here at SALT New York 2021. We are talking to Kevin Carter. He is the founder and CAO at EMQQ. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
So you are speaking at SALT this week about all things emerging markets, which is something that you focus on at EMQQ. You just gave me some very interesting statistics on people around the world and who is actually considered part of an emerging market, the percentage of the population. Tell us about that and why emerging markets is so important.
Sure. Well, as you alluded, emerging markets really are the world. I mean, 85% of the world's people are in emerging and frontier markets. Even more of the future, as measured by young people, 90% of the world's people are in emerging and frontier markets. And these people are moving on up. They are becoming consumers, and they want more and better food, more and better clothing, appliances, vacations, cars, and they want their kids to go to college. And that's the foundation of the emerging markets story. It's the people that are emerging, and it's a big deal. McKinsey calls the growth of the emerging market consumer the greatest growth opportunity in the history of capitalism. So even if they're wrong, and it's the second biggest growth opportunity, it's a big deal, and it's what all emerging market investing is ultimately about.
And so you're considered an active value investor, an expert in that space and that type of investing. How do you find opportunities within active value for emerging markets?
Well, I'm a value investor first and foremost, and I pray towards Omaha. But I've worked in the indexing business for 20 years, and what I've realized is that in emerging markets and the indexes that track China or the broad emerging market indexes, they're really broken. If you want to make money investing in emerging markets, the traditional passive broad indexes are not the way to go. And the real problem is that in emerging markets, you have these giant state-owned enterprises, government-owned banks, and oil companies, which are inefficient and full of corruption, frankly. And you have, the last two presidents of Brazil, for example, have both gone to jail for stealing your money if you're investing in a traditional broad emerging markets ETF.
And so how do you manage that with different entities around the world and governments? There's been a lot of news on China in the last few months and the technology companies there, and is it safe to invest in them or not? How do you manage those regulations in different government entities when you're creating a fund or a product for investors?
Sure. Well, we track the entire emerging markets internet sector, and we don't really discriminate that, we think this country's good or bad. But the reality is that, all over the world, governments are grappling with big technology. And it's in the headlines, in the investment headlines in China, but the same days that our markets are panicked about the Chinese government, there are headlines in the New York Times talking about how our president is, getting ready to assemble a team to go after the FANG stock. So governments all over the world are dealing with the incredible rise of these platform companies, and which they've outgrown regulations. And so all over the world, this is a big government versus big tech battle, and it's likely to increase, frankly, going forward.
And so you are obviously speaking here at SALT this week in New York, one of the first conferences to be back live in person post-COVID-19 world. What are you so excited to speak about at SALT this week? And do you think it's important to have people back in real life?
Well, I think it's certainly important to have people back in real life and for all of our economy to open back up. And so I think it's great that Anthony, pushed to make sure this happened. And in terms of what I'm going to talk about, how all those billions of consumers are getting two other things into their lives that we take for granted, things that I've had for 25 or 30 years. The first thing that these people are getting is a computer. And it's not on their desk, and it never will be. It's a $50, $60 Android-based smartphone is bringing the computer to the world for the first time. And it's also bringing with it something that I've had for 25 years called the internet. So I first got the internet in 1995 in the Marina District of San Francisco on a telephone line with a modem. Now the internet just shows up in my pocket. Well, if you're in Western China or India, you never had a wired connection. And so the mobile broadband is bringing the internet to the world, and the combination of those three megatrends, all of the rest of the world's people wanting stuff, getting a computer, getting internet access, it's created what I'm pretty sure is the fastest growing sector in the world ever. In terms of these emerging market internet companies.
Yeah, and those really are the drivers for emerging markets moving forward, and we're very excited to see what EMQQ has to bring to SALT and put together for the investors out there this year.
Great, well, we're glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
All right, thank you.